I'm the publisher of Works Magazine, In Magazine, and the website called Workplace Insight. The choice of in the round means we have the choice of either standing up or sitting down to address you. So hopefully it feels inclusive. The conversation we're talking about today is what does the future hold for architecture and design? Now this is a really, really big topic, and especially in the wake of 2020 and everything that followed, the past 6 years of debate about how much time people should spend in an office and whether the office is dead or not. We're calling an end to that. The office is not dead and it won't die. And we kind of think that actually we've reached an equilibrium point in the whole debate about return to office and how much time people should spend there. So what we're now looking to do is to talk about things in a sophisticated way. Once those things are settled, what does the future hold? This is a very, very big topic, so we've had to narrow it down a little bit, and we're very fortunate to have such a fantastic panel. I've checked with them, so I'm okay to say this, but they were all around in this market 30 odd years ago when we experienced something very, very similar with the advent of mobile communications and the internet. So, you know, the lockdown thing and what's currently happening with AI has created a paroxysm of change, and we're here to address what that means. And we're going to be talking about it across three domains, which are going to be professionals, so looking at what it means for individuals, for occupiers, and for the office itself. We haven't got a lot of time to do that. We're going to have about 10 or 15 minutes at the end for questions. Each of the speakers is going to address one particular aspect of that. But that doesn't mean they're not able to speak to all of the other subjects in an informed and experienced way. Is that okay?
Fabulous.
Yep. Fabulous. Okay, well there you go. So first up, we have Nicola Gillen, who's going to be addressing the issues of careers and professionalism. Nicola's from Cushman & Wakefield, but hopefully you can introduce yourself properly. After that, Helen Beresford of IDSR. Do you say IDSR or Shepherd Robson? IDSR, who will be talking about the impact on occupiers. And then finally, Colin Burry of Gensler, who will be looking at the future for office design and architecture. Like I said, 10 or 15 minutes at the end for questions, and hopefully you can engage in the conversation. So first off, I'm gonna sit down first of all. I'm not going to stand up throughout all of this, but the speakers can choose whether to stand up or not. So Nicola, my question: how are these changes shaping the careers and experiences of workplace professionals, and especially younger people? I think this is one of the conversations we had in our pre-meeting about what the impact will be going forward, as well as what's happening now. And a related question. Actually, no. Let's do that one first, and we'll get on to the second one later.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm Nicola Gillen. I lead strategic consulting for Cushman's across EMEA, and I'm also the chair of the BCO National Judges. So I get to spend 3 weeks a year in a minivan tearing around the country looking at great buildings, which is great. My background is architecture, so that's where I started, and I graduated in the 90s, and it was a massive recession. There was no work at all in Europe, so we all went to the Far East, And I think some of the changes that were around then are still here. So, for example, multidisciplinary working. So I think gone is the day, really, of specializing in one area. Now people need to be able to segue into other disciplines and not only understand other disciplines, but also be able to translate their specialism into others. So, for example, sustainability, really that's everybody's job, no matter what your role is. And things like neuroscience, so increasingly getting into other disciplines. So I think interdisciplinary shifts has been around for 30 years, and I think it's no different now. I think it's just as big. Obviously, technology is massive as a second theme, digitization, and all of that's doing. If you look at something really specific like rendering and what's happened to rendering in the last 2-3 years, it's incredible. On large projects, there used to be huge budgets for 3D visualization, and that's now gone and been replaced by little movies and material that's increasingly generated by various AI tools. Obviously, AI itself is going to be the biggest change I think any of us are going to see. I think it's going to be great for people who are experienced in their career, have established networks, have established expertise. I think it's going to make those people more efficient, more productive. I think it's going to be a tough gig for younger people for two reasons. I think there's going to be a challenge with talent pipeline, and how are people ever going to get to a point where they're applying judgment and experience if they don't learn the slow way in terms of coming through and working on the job in that way. So I think that's going to be a really big challenge. And I think the third point I'd make on professions is there's a big shift in terms of real estate, which always reported to finance or operations, and now is increasingly reporting to HR. So that completely changes the conversation and the language of the client.